Pavesi M42 is a very rare Italian prototype rifle, which uses overpowered machine gun cartridges, allowing it to deal shockingly balanced damage? Neither historians nor enlisted players know anything about this exceptionally strange weapon, but I, yes, some random stranger on the internet who enjoys playing games with no qualifications in history or weapon studies? Is that a degree? I don't even know, man. But yes, I will find out as much or even more than the world even knows about it. Stay tuned. How are you all doing, humans of the world? It's your boy MajorMcDonalds, and you're watching the series on my channel reviewing all the gold order weapons in Enlisted. And today we're talking about the Pavesi M42. This video, as always, will consider the weapon's history, its stats, comparing it to existing weapons, some gameplay, how fun it is to use in game, and my overall leaderboard ranking. All sections which you can quickly move to using the timestamps on the video timeline. But you guys definitely know the score by now. Let's begin. The Pavesi M42, meaning this model, M of the Pavesi, was designed in 1942, is an Italian semi-automatic rifle that is usable in the Tunisia campaign for the Axis faction in-game. It was an experimental weapon, a prototype, where the Royal Italian Army in World War II chambered it for the 8x59mm caliber Breda cartridge, which was initially designed for use in anti-aircraft heavy machine guns like the Breda M37 and the Fiat Revelli Modello 1935. This cartridge was produced between 1935 and 1960, but is no longer in use today, although it did spread to other countries, notably in Albania, that used it after World War II to use in Italian machine guns they captured during the war, and by Portugal during the Portuguese colonial war, most notably in Angola and Mozambique during their wars of independence between 1961 and 1974. Very little is actually known about the rifle itself, and it still puzzles historians till this day. This does imply that the history section of this video will be quite short, but I'll try and add more background detail as much as I possibly can for you history buffs out there. It resembles the appearance of the Soviet SVT-40, another weapon we see in game, but mechanically completely different and very complicated. It's a subscribe button operated rifle, so you must subscribe to my channel, otherwise the weapon won't work for you. I'm not kidding. Subscribe. It's actually a recoil-operated rifle, so when you fire, the recoil impulse pushes the barrel back, which is what you see in-game when you fire it. Looking at the action itself, the whole block with the sights and the chamber cycles backwards ever so slightly, also something you notice in-game when fired. It has a 4-lug rotating bolt inside, and it's fed by a proprietary stripper Mannlicher-style clip, like a Carcano rifle, the 8mm Breda, initially designed for heavy machine guns, as we said before, not the 8mm Mauser, as we've seen in other enlisted rifles. The idea was that the Pavesi would have a heavier bullet and thus longer range potential compared to the 6.5 or the 7x35 Carcano cartridge that we see in other Italian rifles in the game. The clip ejects from the bottom of the rifle, and there is a lever on the bottom for the manual eject, which you do when reloading in game. To close the bolt, you actually need to put it on safe, funnily enough. The handguard will look unique amongst other Italian rifles used in game because it is heavily perforated with many holes, with almost an SVT style muzzle brake on the front, which was an afterthought added to try and delay the recoil action by blowing forward the barrel, though its efficacy remains unknown. The Pavesi itself held 6 rounds, but as there are so few known in existence today, some historians actually speculate whether this was true, as it was never adopted by any modern army at the time, apart from experimentation and testing, and the true number of Pavesi M42s made is unknown, but likely very small. There is supposedly a 1938 as well as a 1942 model of this Pavesi, both made in the city of Brescia in northern Italy, whose factories also made numerous other Carcano rifles and the Moschetto M91, the primary weapon of the Italian Marines Premium Squad, the 1st San Marco Regiment 3rd Battalion Tobruk, which you can watch a detailed review of by clicking in the top right hand corner of the video now. There is almost no information on exactly who made this Pavesi rifle, if or when it was tested, or what the results of any testing may have been. The 1942 model date does put this rifle well after the main Italian self-loading rifle trials though, which concluded in the adoption, although not the mass production, of the Arma Guerra model 1939 in 1939. It's a little bit of a shame that so little is known about this weapon, but the fact it is very unique and a very complicated, strange prototype of a very rare weapon means I actually enjoy its history, and arguably it makes it more attractive to use and spend my gold order on in-game. So yeah, I like it a lot. And not because I'm biased towards Italian weapons, I swear.
Sorry, forgive me the word, it's bullshit.
The Enlisted wiki states that the Pavesi M42 has the highest damage out of any semi-automatic rifle in the game, which will be because of its cartridge we just spoke about in the history section of this video, with little recoil and an average reload time. Is this true? Let's check by comparing the Pavesi against other Tunisia Axis rifles, then to some of the other best rifles in the game, to give it perspective. Remember that all gold weapons already start at maximum rank with upgraded stats, so we will compare the fully upgraded Pavesi to the fully upgraded versions of the other rifles in game, and where I haven't unlocked them yet, just pretend that they are fully upgraded, and calculate the percentages yourself, if you can do mental maths of course, and I'd like to believe that you can.
So you know, let's not take the piss here.
I certainly wasn't.
Well, I think you are.
We'll begin with the Carcano M41, the default free first available rifle in the Tunisia Axis campaign. We can immediately see that the fully upgraded M41 has a weaker base hit power by 0.7 and a much slower rate of fire, mostly due to the fact that the Pavesi is a semi-automatic rifle whereas the Carcano M41 is just a bolt action. Because semi-automatics are just so much better than bolt actions in pretty much every way, and you will want to give every soldier you have a semi-automatic rifle as soon as you unlock them. It doesn't even matter that the Carcano M41 has slightly better reload time and lower recoil than the Pavesi. Also because every bolt action needs to pull back the bolt after every shot, meaning recoil is mostly irrelevant for bolt actions. The 6-round magazine will be a common feature amongst Italian rifles and semi-automatics here, so we can, most of the time, ignore it in comparisons for now, and the Carcano weighing slightly less makes little difference in terms of run speed whilst holding the weapon, which in itself doesn't matter as much as the other core statistics on the rifles. The big surprising thing is that the Pavesi, a semi-automatic rifle, hit power beats the M41's of bolt action. That's legit shouldn't be allowed. Oh my god, that's just insane. The Pavesi is definitely better than the Carcano M41. The second rifle, or the first unlocked rifle from the Tunisia Axis campaign, is the classic Kar98K. Thank god the hit power on the Kar98K beats the Pavesi, albeit by only 0.5. So the Pavesi still almost counts as a bolt action in terms of power, but a semi-auto in terms of fire rate. Jesus man. However, the Kar98K does have a worse fire rate, worse recoil, and a worse magazine size. It has the same reload time, but due to all the other things, the Pavesi is just a lot better. The third rifle in chronological order is the Carcano Mod 38 7.35mm. It has a better hit power, albeit by an even smaller amount than before, just 0.3, once again with a worse rate of fire. This is made up for slightly by the fact that it has slightly better reload speed, weight and recoil, but the rate of fire difference is just so stark that none of it matters and the Pavesi is just clear ahead of it. The fourth rifle, god, there's so many different rifles in Tunisia man, that is freely unlockable in this campaign tree is the Carcano M1891, widely accepted as the best bolt action rifle for the Tunisia Axis campaign. It does have 0.7 better base hit power than the Pavesi, which is notable, yet once again has a substantially worse rate of fire. Its recoil and weight might be better, but its reload speed is actually worse for the first time, albeit minimally. As always, the rate of fire difference is too stark to look over, so the Pavesi beats it. So we've completed our look at the free campaign bolt action unlockables, but what about other semi-automatic rifles in the Tunisia Axis campaign? Starting with the Gewehr Mod 39, one of my favourite semi-automatic rifles in game, the Pavesi beats it by a mile in terms of fire rate. Dear god, I didn't even realise how much better it was, wow. I should also mention the fact that many players complain that the sight and shot deviation is poor on the Gewehr, and they often get frustrated using it, but I can say for definite that the Pavesi solves both of these issues very well for you, as I was also one of those people complaining. The Gewehr is slightly better in the reload time, recoil and weight departments, but the minimal increases are outweighed by the Pavesi's much better hit power, guaranteeing knocking down or killing in one hit any enemies, which matters more than a few tenths of a second reload speed improvements, for example. What about the other semi-autos in this campaign, such as the Gewehr 41? At 5 stars, fully upgraded, it would have 14.4 hit power, still substantially lower than the Pavesi. It also supposedly has a low rate of fire, which for some reason is the same for all Gewehr semi-automatic rifles in the stats in-game, but in reality it has a much higher rate of fire than it says, and probably the exact same as the Pavesi. The Gewehr 41's reload time would actually be unchanged, so the 4.8 seconds is much worse than the Pavesi's 3.4 seconds. However, this does not take into account the kind of janky reload animation the Gewehr 41 kind of has. It reloads 2 clips at once for a full reload, which really shouldn't be the case if you still have some ammo left in the chamber. Nonetheless, even if this was fixed, it probably still would have worse or the same reload speed. If it was fully upgraded, it would also have better recoil, both horizontally and vertically vertically than the Pavesi, but not by a huge amount, hence it would go mostly unnoticed. The Gewehr 41 might be heavier, but it's 4 extra rounds in a magazine and its bayonet is a substantial buff over the Pavesi. Overall, in my opinion, the Pavesi does beat the Gewehr 41 as the extra bullets per magazine is not enough to account for the higher hit power, reload speed and fire rate of the Pavesi. The latest big Stalingrad update also added a new semi-automatic rifle to the Tunisia Axis campaign, the ZH-29. Here, suddenly the Pavesi really struggles. Yes, the Pavesi still has the highest hit power out of the two, but it loses in almost every other aspect to the ZH-29, such as in rate of fire, reload time and magazine size. Yes, the Pavesi does also have better recoil, but honestly, all the other aspects mean I'd actually just rather use the ZH-29, because the recoil differences aren't that large, and the hit power is close enough that it just hardly matters. Plus, for many people, the sights on the ZH-29 are better as well. However, it should be noticed you only unlock the ZH at level 31, which is far away and right at the very end of the campaign tree, whereas the Pavesi can be unlocked at any time, even from level 1 with your gold order or enlisted gold. So, we found out that the Pavesi M42 is the second best rifle available when compared to the whole Tunisia Axis campaign tree. There are no other gold order rifles which we can compare it to, but what about premium squad rifles? There are two. The premium squad with the Mosquito M91, a very unique premium squad that I reviewed extensively on my channel, and I'd strongly recommend you watch that video if you like Italian themed stuff. But also the new premium squad that came in the Stalingrad update with the Beretta M31, a semi-automatic rifle. The former rifle, the Mosquito M91, is actually a short version of the Carcano M1891, and not a semi-automatic rifle. It does have the best firing rate across all bolt-action rifles in the campaign, but not anywhere close to the Pavesi, which has a notable 0.7 worse base damage than the Pavesi. Without even looking at its other stats, we could conclude that the Pavesi is better than it, but if we do actually look at the other stats, the reload speed is actually 0.1 seconds worse, and the recoil is only just slightly better, confirming our conclusion that the Pavesi is just better. Against the Beretta M31 though, it's very close. The Beretta M31 has a better reload time of 3.2 seconds, recoil of 53 and 21, and weight of 4.2 kilograms, and has the same rate of fire of 200 to 220 shots per minute, and magazine size of 6. However, it has a whole 2 points less base damage, of 13.6 compared to the Pavesi's 15.6. Basically, it's a trade-off between whether you value raw damage or reload time and recoil more. It's exceptionally close, but I'd give the winner to the Pavesi, because damage in my mind is more important to guarantee kills, whereas recoil can be managed. Therefore, overall, it's the second best after the ZH-29 available rifle in the Tunisia Axis campaign, including premium squad weapons and gold order weapons. So if you are a Tunisia Axis fan, then it makes a lot of sense for you to pick this up, especially as you can use this early from level 1 or any level before level 31 to get a major power boost over the other rifles you unlock for free, which come later on. But what about when we compare the Pavesi to other rifles throughout every campaign and faction in the entire game? That's a different story entirely. You would know the best rifles in game if you watch my video on the top 20 rifles, which you can watch by clicking in the top right hand corner of the video now to access. As a result, you would know that the best few are all semi-automatic rifles, which have fully automatic functionality, such as the FG42 too. These are obviously much better than the Pavesi, which is solely a semi-automatic rifle for numerous reasons, so we won't even bother comparing them as we know the Pavesi would be worse. But we will quickly compare the Pavesi to a few of the best purely semi-automatic rifles that are on my top 20 list. In fact, if we compare it first to the opposite campaign, the Tunisia Allies, and all of its rifles including premium and gold weapons, then we find that the Pavesi actually beats all of them, including the M1 Garand, the M1 Carbine, the Pedersen rifle, the Johnson M1941, and the Berthier M16 Carbine, the rifle of the awesome Moroccan premium squad, which I have also reviewed on my channel, and you can watch now by clicking in the top right hand corner of the video on the white exclamation mark. Some of these the Pavesi only beats by a minuscule amount, but still beats them nonetheless, except the Turner SMLE, one of the new premium squads that came out with the Stalingrad update, and in fact it also actually became the highest damaging semi-automatic rifle in the entire game, overtaking the Pavesi, which had that title before the Stalingrad update. So the Pavesi is a better semi-automatic rifle than almost all semi-automatics and bolt actions in their enemy's campaign, Tunisia Allies, as well as its own Tunisia Axis. This is a big surprising fact, and I can bet most of you watching watching this video did not know this, as many people give the Pavesi a bad rep for literally no deserved reason. In terms of other rifles across the entire game, the Gewehr 1888, Berdan 2, both Gold Order bolt-action rifles are some of the hardest hitting in the entire game, and both beat the Pavesi, however lose to the Pavesi in every other way. So if you do want to play with the hardest hitting rifles, one hit killing everything and anything you see, and getting punished harshly if you miss, then these are the ones to get over the Pavesi. The Finnish M28 rifle in a Moscow Axis Premium Squad, the Label 1886 M93 rifle in a Volkssturm Berlin Axis Premium Squad, which I have reviewed on my channel before. As always, click the bottom left corner of the video to watch it now. Ha, you thought I was going to say top right hand corner again, didn't you? Well, I would have done, because it's actually in the top right hand corner again. I don't know why I said bottom left. Ignore me. Are both great bets for this too. I'd also rank the SVT-38 above the Pavesi. The SVT-40 is also going to be better than it, but because they are basically the same thing, albeit the SVT-40 is actually slightly worse than the SVT-38 for God knows why. And I'd also say that the Gewehr 43 is better than it too, because it's slightly better than the SVT in my mind, so it just makes coherent sense then. But if you want the specific term for it, it's transitive preferences, a part of game theory that I actually studied on my degree. Yes, I did in fact do economics. Same for the mighty Gewehr 03, part of a very underrated premium squad in the Berlin Axis campaign. So this section has taken a while, but we've concluded many things, including that the Pavesi M42 is the second best rifle in the entirety of the Tunisia campaign, in both the Allies and Axis factions. It goes toe to toe with many other semi-autos across all campaigns in the game, losing out narrowly to them in some cases, such as the SVTs, the Gewehr 43s and the Gewehr 03s, but losing heavily to fully automatic rifles, as expected. In-game, this semi-auto feels really cool to use. I know some players don't like it because of its sights, or that it is quite similar to an Armaguerra, but in my opinion, better, and the added hit power makes it feel so much more powerful. And it just is. Other than that, I will concede it does feel rather like an Armaguerra, so it might only suit people who like or are used to other Italian weapons in-game. The reload animation is rather interesting, but the firing sound is the same as the other Italian semi-autos. So, while it is definitely more powerful and accurate than many other rifles, it doesn't feel that unique, which is a little bit of a shame, but then again, it just is very similar to other Italian rifles in real life anyway, so we can't be too disappointed, especially knowing that there are so few of this prototype weapon produced and in the world. But I like it, and I'm glad I spent my gold order on it, because it does substantially better than the majority of the free rifles you get, and I hope to be able to show you why I still think it's fantastic through the raw gameplay section coming in a second. Ci vediamo dopo! All that being said, I give the rare Pavesi M42 a 7 out of 10. This might be surprising to some, but I give it this high score because it is a powerful, unique and accurate semi-automatic rifle that beats almost all other Tunisia campaign weapons for both factions. And there are only few other gold weapons that are more worthwhile to spend your gold order on than the Pavesi, some of which are on the leaderboard you can see now. It would score higher if it was a bit more unique and different to an armor guerra, and if the sights were a bit better for many people, as well as if it was actually the best rifle in Tunisia, for either the Axis or Allies or overall, which would indeed give it a great score instead. If you guys want to watch other gold order weapon reviews to decide before you pick which one to buy, then I have many more of them on my channel, some of which are on the screen for you. Nevertheless, it's been an absolute pleasure ranting at you today. Have a wonderful day, enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.